Catherine was slicing into a strawberry cheesecake when, almost casually, she said, "I'm meeting someone else tonight." At first, I thought I misheard her, or that she was trying out one of her dry, borderline cruel jokes. Sometimes she'd test her sarcasm on me like she was workshopping for a stand-up set, waiting to see if I'd laugh or flinch. But this wasn't that. The knife hit the plate with a sharp clink, like punctuation. She didn't look up, just calmly licked a bit of cream from her finger, then glanced at the slice as if deciding whether she wanted the whole thing or just a bite. Meanwhile, I stood there holding a gift box with a bottle of Japanese whiskey inside. A stupidly expensive one I'd driven across town to find because she said her colleague Erin liked rare stuff. I had even wrapped it myself. Well, technically, the woman at the boutique had wrapped it, but I picked out the paper. Silver with navy ribbon. She'd always said navy looked elegant. "You hate my office parties anyway," she added, tone as casual as the dinner music playing in the background. Something slow and jazzy that suddenly felt wrong. I blinked. "Wait, what?" She looked up this time, her expression flat. I didn't want to lie. I figured being honest would be less cruel. "Being honest?" I echoed, the words tumbling out of me in disbelief. "Yes," she said, and then added, like she was explaining the weather, "I'm meeting someone else tonight. His name is Richard." The name hit me like a pebble to the chest. Not a full punch, not yet, but enough to sting. Richard. I knew the name. He was the creative lead at her office. New guy. She mentioned him maybe 3 or 4 times over the last couple of months, always in the context of brainstorming sessions or campaign ideas. Nothing suspicious. At least nothing I caught. I set the gift box down on the kitchen counter and stared at her. "You're going on a date, tonight? With Richard?" I asked, each word feeling like it was being pulled out of me. "Yes," she said, as she picked up the plate and walked past me into the dining room. "Don't make this a thing, Mark. Don't make this a thing." She sat down at the table like we were about to have a normal evening. Like we hadn't just crossed a line we'd never even tiptoed near in 10 years together. I followed, slowly, because my legs were still trying to decide whether they wanted to stand, run, or collapse. "You're serious," I said, more to myself than to her. "Yes," she said again, taking a bite of cheesecake. "And I'd appreciate it if you didn't text me all night asking when I'm coming back. I'll be home late." "Home," I said. "Like here? You're coming back here?" She gave me a look, like I was being dramatic. "It's still my house too, Mark." I ran a hand through my hair and sat across from her, still not fully believing this conversation was happening. Her plate clinked softly as she cut another bite. No tension in her face. No regret. Just calm. "I don't understand," I said. "Why are you telling me like this? Over cheesecake?" She gave a little shrug. "You always said you hated surprises." That line knocked something loose in me. A laugh, bitter and short, slipped out before I could stop it. She looked mildly annoyed, like I'd ruined her dessert. "You think this is funny?" "No," she said flatly. "But I'm also not going to pretend like I'm the only person who's been unhappy." I stared at her. "Unhappy? You never said anything. You never asked." She snapped back, quick now. "You just coasted, Mark. Every day, same breakfast, same commute, same safe routine. You stopped noticing. I've been drifting for months. And instead of talking to me, you decided to, what? Cheat?" She looked out the window, her voice quieter now. "Don't act shocked. You saw this coming." "No, I didn't," I said. "I've had my head down trying to keep our lives stable. I thought we were building something, Catherine, not auditioning replacements." She didn't respond. "I mean, is this just a fling? Is he married? Is this serious?" Still silence. "Do you love him?" She gave me a glance, sharp and unreadable. "It's not about that." "Then what is it about?" I asked. "Because you're sitting here acting like this is a logistics issue, like you're swapping a meeting on your calendar." "I told you the truth," she said. "You should be thanking me." That stopped me. "Thanking you," I repeated. "You want me to thank you for blowing up our marriage over dessert?" Catherine pushed her plate away slightly, no longer interested in the cheesecake. She folded her hands and looked at me, voice low. I didn't come home to fight. I came home to be honest. I'm meeting someone tonight. I didn't sneak around this time. I told you, you can be angry, but at least don't call me a liar. The words this time echoed, sharp and obvious. I leaned back in my chair. What do you mean, this time? Her eyes narrowed just briefly, and that told me everything. There was a before. Before tonight. Before this confession. Before Richard. The room felt smaller. Tighter. How long? I asked, trying to keep my voice from breaking. How long has this been going on? She didn't answer, but her silence screamed. I got up and paced to the sink, staring down into it like maybe the drain could swallow me whole. The jazz in the background played on, some slow trumpet solo that felt entirely too smooth for the moment. When I turned back around, she was on her phone, texting, like I wasn't even in the room. I wanted to grab the phone and throw it through the window. I wanted to yell, demand answers, demand remorse. But instead, I stood there feeling like someone had unplugged my insides. When she finally looked up, she saw something in my face. Her expression softened, not into guilt, but into discomfort. I know this is hard for you, she said quietly now, but we're both adults. I didn't reply. I walked over, grabbed the gift box from the counter, and held it up. Tell Aaron I hope he enjoys the whiskey, I said. It cost me half a paycheck. I started toward the door. Where are you going? She asked, standing. I don't know, I said. Somewhere that doesn't feel like a betrayal. She didn't follow. I paused in the doorway, waiting, hoping for something. A protest, a wait, a don't go. But nothing came. Just the soft scrape of her fork against the plate as she returned to the cheesecake. I stepped out into the night, the cool air hitting me like a slap. And for the first time in years, I realized I didn't know who she was anymore. Or maybe I never did. The cold didn't bite, but it didn't soothe either. I stood at the edge of our driveway for I don't know how long, just staring at the sky like the answers might be spelled out in the stars. She was still inside, eating dessert, texting Richard, and I was out here like some extra in my own life. I got in the car, but I didn't start it. I just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, trying to figure out when things started slipping. When Catherine stopped looking at me the way she used to. When I stopped noticing. But now that I thought about it, really thought about it, the signs weren't just there. They were neon. A new dress last month. A sleek, wine-red thing she said was for a client mixer. The tag still hangs in the laundry room because she never washes it with our clothes. I remember asking if I'd get to see it on her. She smiled and said, "It's not really your style." That was the first time I realized she was dressing for someone else. Then there was the extra pair of heels I found in her car. She said they were backups in case her main ones gave out. I thought that was smart. Catherine was always prepared. But it wasn't just smart, it was strategic. And her phone. God, the phone. It used to live on the kitchen counter when she got home. Now it lived in her hand. Or her pocket. Or flipped face down on the table. Always on vibrate. Always flashing at weird hours. Once, around 10 p.m., I saw a name light up her screen while we were watching a movie. Richard. I remember teasing her. Tell Richard the pitch can wait until tomorrow. She just smiled and said, he's harmless. That word. Harmless. Funny how quickly harmless becomes int asterisk mate dinner and late night meetup. And I'm seeing someone else. Looking back, it wasn't just behavior. It was language. Her friends, especially Jules, started using that tone with me. Half joking, half condescending. Calling me the responsible one, the rock, Mr. Predictable, always followed by a smirk. I laughed along, thinking it was all in good fun. Now I wondered how long they'd known. How many people had front row seats to the unraveling of my marriage while I was in the dark. I started the engine and drove aimlessly. Past the grocery store where we used to split errands. Past the gym where we both had memberships but never went. Past the Thai place we swore we'd stop ordering from after they messed up our order, but still went back to anyway, because it was our thing. Everything felt distant, like I was passing through someone else's memories. Eventually, I ended up at an overlook just outside town. I used to come here in college to clear my head, before I knew what real problems felt like. Back then, stress was a bad grade or a friend not texting back. Now it was wondering how long your wife's been lying to your face. I pulled out my phone and opened Google Maps. Not for directions, I knew this town by heart, but because of something else. A few days ago, I'd noticed something weird in Catherine's recent activity. We share a Google account for calendars and grocery lists, and I'd never snooped before. But last week, I was trying to add a dentist appointment when I saw it. A timeline of places she'd visited. Most were harmless. Her office, the bakery she liked, the nail salon she always overtipped at. But there was one entry that didn't make sense. A motel. 40 minutes out of town. Not once. Not twice. 4 times in the last 6 weeks. When I first saw it, I assumed it was a mistake. Maybe she'd met a client there, some kind of seminar or off-site meeting. But I asked, casually, what she'd been doing on those days, and she said, book club. Book club. She hadn't read a novel in 6 months. I remember staring at the screen, waiting for my brain to make sense of it. Waiting for the dots to connect in a way that didn't lead to the conclusion that now felt obvious. Tonight confirmed it. It was never a book club. It was never harmless. I zoomed in on the motel. Rose Hill Suites. Nothing fancy. Just clean enough to avoid suspicion. Cheap enough to pay in cash. The kind of place that doesn't ask questions. A wave of nausea hit me. I sat there trying to decide what hurt more, the betrayal itself or the fact that she'd made it look so easy. And then there were the messages. I hadn't meant to see them. I swear I wasn't that kind of guy. But one night, a few weeks ago, she left her iPad open in the living room. Notifications popped up from a messaging app one didn't recognize. One of those encrypted ones. The preview showed a message from someone named R. Just one line, thinking about Monday already. You were unreal. I didn't confront her. I just closed the app and said nothing. Told myself maybe I misunderstood. Maybe R was a client. Maybe Monday was a workout session or a meditation class. I lied to myself because the truth felt too heavy. But now the truth was unavoidable. It was sitting at our dinner table eating cheesecake like nothing had changed. I opened my photo gallery. Scrolled until I found it, the picture I took that night I followed her. I hadn't planned to. I just had a gut feeling. She left the house in a hurry. Said she forgot her wallet and had to swing by Jules's place. I waited 10 minutes, then got in the car and tailed her. She didn't go to Jules's. She drove to a parking lot outside a dimly lit building I didn't recognize. And there, under the orange glow of a flickering lamp post, I saw her get out and wrap her arms around a man. Tall, well-dressed, confident. She looked up at him and smiled. A smile I hadn't seen directed at me in half a year. I took one picture. Just one. And then I drove away before I did something I'd regret. Back then, I wasn't ready to admit what it meant. Now I was. Now, the puzzle had assembled itself whether I wanted it to or not. The dress, the motel, the text, the smile. All the pieces had been there, just waiting for me to open my eyes. And I had. The question now was what to do next. Do I confront her again? Demand more answers I'll never trust? Ask for reasons she probably doesn't even understand herself? Or do I act? Not out of revenge. Not out of rage. But out of clarity. If Catherine thought I was Mr. Predictable, maybe it was time I did something unpredictable. Maybe it was time the truth spoke louder than her lies. I woke up the next morning feeling like someone had filled my chest with gravel. Not heavy enough to crush me, but rough enough to keep me awake. I hadn't really slept. I'd sat on the edge of the bed staring at the floor, replaying everything over and over until the room began to feel like an interrogation cell. Catherine had slipped out before sunrise, leaving only a mug in the sink as proof she'd been there at all. Her absence was an echo. The first thing I did was open my laptop. Not to work, not to scroll, but to gather. To finally stop telling myself maybe and start collecting definitely. If I was going to confront her, if I was going to do anything, I needed more than feelings and blurry pictures. I went back to our shared Google account. The timeline was still there, still damning. I exported it. Each little red dot a quiet indictment. The motel, the detours, the secret hours. I saved it as a PDF. My hands shook as I named the file. Catherine _ trips. PDF. It felt cold, like evidence in a trial. Then the chats. That encrypted app she thought I didn't know about. She'd once used it on her iPad. And though she'd deleted it since, she hadn't realized that some of the notifications had been saved in her backups. They weren't complete conversations, but the fragments were enough. Can't stop thinking about you. Last night was perfect. Book club again next week? I copied every screenshot *T, every timestamp. Lined them up like puzzle pieces on my desktop. Seeing them together was like looking at a photograph of a car crash you'd already survived but still felt in your bones. Ugly, undeniable. I kept thinking about the picture in my phone, the one of her hugging him in that parking lot. It wasn't even a good photo. Grainy, taken from a distance. But her smile was unmistakable. So was the way she tilted her head. The small gesture she used to do with me when we first started dating. It hurt to look at, but I printed it anyway. I put everything, the photo, the screenshot *TS, the map history, into a plain manila envelope. No return address. No note. Just evidence. I sealed it with a strip of tape and wrote one word on the front in block letters. Catherine. Then, beneath it, her office address. It wasn't impulsive. It was precise. I knew what that office was like. I'd been to their events, their happy hours. I'd seen how fast rumors moved through that open floor plan. Her colleagues loved gossip the way fish love water. And tonight was the company's leadership banquet, the one she'd spent weeks preparing for, the one she said she wanted to shine at. If she wanted to live a double life, I'd make sure both halves met under the same roof. I didn't write anything cruel. I didn't add commentary or accusations, just facts. She could try to spin them, but the truth had its own gravity. People would see. People would know. And for once, I wouldn't be the one sitting in the dark. I dropped the envelope into the mailbox on my way to work. My hands didn't shake this time. It felt less like revenge and more like release, like setting down a weight I'd been carrying too long. All day, my phone buzzed with messages from Catherine. Casual ones at first, don't forget to pick up milk. Then, an hour later, everything okay? Then, we need to talk tonight. I didn't answer. I wanted her to feel the silence, to sense the shift. By evening, I was driving to the hotel where the banquet was being held. I didn't wear a suit. I wore the old jacket she used to call my college boy look. Soft denim, frayed at the cuffs. She'd once said it made me look safe. Tonight, I wanted to look like anything but. The ballroom was already glowing when I arrived. Crystal chandeliers, polished floors, people in black tie laughing over champagne. Through the glass doors, I could see Catherine near the stage, greeting guests with that smile she reserved for public view, the one she'd practiced in the mirror. I stayed near the back, leaning against a column, watching. First, nothing happened. Just the usual chatter and clinking glasses. Then I saw it, the shift. Phones coming out, screens lighting up, heads tilting together as people whispered. A coworker nudged another, pointing subtly in Catherine's direction. Her smile flickered. She tried to recover, but the color drained from her face. Someone approached her. A woman from HR, I think, and whispered in her ear. Catherine's hand went to her mouth. For a second, she looked directly at me across the room. Our eyes met, and I knew. The envelope had landed. She excused herself from the group and started walking. Fast. I didn't move. I waited until she was nearly at the exit before she found me. She grabbed my arm and pulled me into the hallway, away from the noise and light. "What the hell did you do?" she hissed, her voice low but sharp. I didn't answer right away, just looked at her. Really looked at her. The makeup, the dress, the frantic eyes. "You destroyed my reputation," she snapped. "Do you know what you've done? This is harassment. I could report you." I almost laughed. "Harassment? You've been living a lie, Catherine. I just showed the truth." She opened her mouth to argue, but I took out my phone and pressed play. A recording filled the small hallway, her own drunken voice from a party months ago, bragging to someone off camera. Mark will believe any tear. If I tell his friends he yells at me, they'll take my side. Her laugh followed, high and sharp. Her face went pale. Where did you get that? I didn't answer. I just let the recording play until it ended. Then I stopped it and put the phone back in my pocket. For the first time since this all began, she looked unsure. Not angry, not smug, unsure. Mark, she said, her voice dropping. Let's talk. Let's fix this. Please. I shook my head slowly. No, not anymore. You wanted a performance. This is your curtain call. She reached out like she might touch my arm, but I stepped back. Her hand hung there in the air, empty. You can still save this, she whispered. We can still. I cut her off. No, Catherine, you can't. Behind her, through the glass doors, the banquet buzzed with whispers and sideways glances. People looking at their phones, looking at her, looking away. She must have felt it too because her shoulders slumped. I turned and walked toward the exit. She called after me, my name, soft at first, then louder. But I didn't stop. Not this time. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could breathe. My hands were steady, my mind clear. I didn't know what came next. Divorce papers, moving boxes, new routines. But I knew one thing. I wasn't the one hiding anymore. I wasn't the one pretending everything was fine. I was done being Mr. Predictable. And whatever came next, it would be on my terms. The night of the banquet stayed with me for days. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but like a splinter under the skin. Something you could ignore until you bumped it the wrong way. Then the sting came rushing back. The next morning, Catherine didn't come home. She didn't text, didn't call. I wasn't sure if she was at a friend's place or holed up in some boutique hotel where no one knew her name. I didn't care. I didn't ask. Instead, I made coffee, opened the blinds, and sat at the kitchen table. The same one where she'd casually told me she was meeting someone else, over cheesecake. I stared at the empty chair across from me, remembering the way she had licked cream off her finger without a hint of shame. My phone buzzed around 10 a.m. It was from Aaron, the colleague I'd bought the whiskey for. So, is everything okay with you too? No pleasantries. No emojis. Just pure office gossip energy packed into one awkward text. Getting there, I replied. That was enough. By noon, 3 more of her coworkers had reached out. Not to ask how I was, but to confirm what they'd already heard. Whispers that had turned into full sentences. Catherine was exposed at the banquet. Richard's name came up. There's a photo. Something about a motel. Someone mailed an envelope. I didn't reply to any of them. I wasn't interested in feeding the fire. But I knew Catherine would feel the heat. I imagined her showing up to work that Monday, face tight with forced indifference. Coworkers offering polite hellos followed by whispered theories the second she turned her back. Maybe she'd act like nothing happened. Maybe she'd resign before HR had the chance to ask questions. Either way, her perfect little second life fantasy had popped like a balloon in a room full of pins. And as for Richard, he vanished. Completely. I checked his name on LinkedIn out of curiosity a week later. Profile gone. His office number disconnected. Catherine didn't mention him once, but I knew she'd noticed. He was part of the illusion she'd built. And now he was smoke. The silence between us stretched on for days. No arguments. No apologies. Nothing. Until the 7th day. That's when she came back. I heard the door unlock in the early afternoon. She stepped in like a shadow. No luggage, no makeup, just sunglasses and a faded hoodie that swallowed her. Hey, she said softly, like she was testing the air. I didn't get up. I was on the couch with my laptop, halfway through drafting an email to a divorce attorney. I closed the lid without sending it. She hovered by the entryway like she didn't know where to stand. I nodded once. That was all she got. Can we talk? She asked. I exhaled. Sure. She walked to the kitchen, the scene of the original crime, and leaned on the counter. Her hands trembled slightly. She took a deep breath, then another. Then she said it. He's gone. No context. No explanation. Just that. Good, I said. She flinched. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she continued. It was supposed to, I don't know, wake you up. I raised an eyebrow. Wake me up. She nodded slowly, like the words tasted awful in her mouth. You were slipping away, Mark. I felt invisible. I didn't want to cheat, not really. I wanted to shake things loose, to make you fight for me. I stared at her, not sure if I wanted to laugh or scream. So the solution was public humiliation? I asked. Gaslighting me for months? Secret motels and fake book clubs? She closed her eyes. I know it was twisted, but I thought if you saw me with someone else, you'd want me again. I never stopped wanting you, I said. I stopped recognizing you. Her lips parted slightly, but nothing came out. She blinked like she was trying not to cry. Then came the part one didn't see coming. There was no fiancé, she whispered. I blinked. What? She stepped closer. The ring I showed Jules. The engagement party I hinted at. All fake. I told people I was seeing someone serious so they'd think I had options. So they'd tell you. I wanted you to be jealous. I just stared at her. The layers of manipulation unfolding like an origami monster. She kept going. I thought maybe you'd confront me, demand answers, make a scene, claim me, and when you didn't, I thought I had to escalate. My voice was low now, tired. So Richard was real, she admitted. But even that was theater. I liked the attention, the way he looked at me, but it wasn't love. It wasn't even lust, not really. It was strategy. I laughed, bitter and short. You cheated on me to conduct a social experiment. She winced. I know how that sounds. No, Catherine. I don't think you do. She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled something out. A folded piece of paper. She placed it on the coffee table between us. I wrote it last night. I thought about leaving it and not coming back. But I needed to say it in person. I didn't reach for the letter. I didn't need to read it. She stood there for a long moment, waiting for some sign of forgiveness. I gave her none. Finally, she said, I still love you. That was it. For words that once could have moved mountains. Now they sounded like someone trying to shout through glass. I looked up at her, and for the first time in our entire marriage, I realized something. Her love, if that's what it really was, no longer mattered to me, because mine was gone. Somewhere along the road of motel trips, whispered lies, and that god-awful cheesecake confession, my love for her had curled up and died. Quietly, completely. I hope you find peace, I said. But not here. She looked like she might cry again. But she didn't, and I didn't ask her to stay. Catherine didn't pack that night. She didn't sleep in our bed either. She sat in the guest room with the door half open, like some stray cat deciding whether it was still welcome. I didn't close the door. I didn't open it either. The next morning, I made coffee and left her cup on the counter, the way she used to do for me when we were still pretending to be in love. She didn't touch it. By 2 p.m., she was gone. No goodbye. No note. Just an empty closet and the soft sigh of a door shutting behind her. I stood in the hallway after she left, listening to nothing. It was the most peaceful silence I'd heard in months. In the weeks that followed, the world didn't stop spinning. But mine slowed down just enough to start feeling real again. My shoulders dropped. My chest loosened. I laughed once at a text from an old friend and didn't immediately feel guilty afterward. The calm that settled over me wasn't joy exactly. It was something quieter. Something better. Clarity. I went back to the gym. Fixed the leaky sink. Caught up on movies I'd missed. I sat on the couch without waiting for her to join me. Slept in the middle of the bed without worrying if my snoring would wake her up. Catherine tried to reach out, of course. At first it was small things. A forwarded article. A saw this and thought of you. A shared Google Calendar invite I never accepted. Then longer messages. I miss us. I'm in therapy now. Richard wasn't even who I wanted. I just wanted you to see me again. I read them. I didn't reply. I think she expected anger. rage. A fight she could win by playing the victim. But all I gave her was distance. And somehow that hurt her more. I heard through Jules, one of her friends who finally admitted they always felt something was off, that Catherine tried painting herself as the one who got betrayed, claimed I'd been emotionally absent, that I used exposure as revenge. But the truth had already done its work. Her name in the office became an adjective, whispered when someone wore too much perfume or laughed too loudly at a coworker's joke. Don't go full Catherine. Richard didn't just vanish from the company. He went radio silent from the industry. His old creative director role was scrubbed from the company site within a week. HR was tight-lipped. But that kind of silence usually means lawyers got involved. As for me, I didn't just survive it. I settled into it. There's something weirdly liberating about having your worst fears confirmed. You stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. You stop checking their phone when they're in the shower. You stop twisting your gut into knots over a glance that lingers too long at a dinner party. You just breathe. And I was finally breathing again. Until the night she showed up on my doorstep. It was almost 2 months to the day since the banquet. The house looked different. Brighter somehow. I'd rearranged furniture, cleared clutter, donated half the junk we'd accumulated during our marriage. So when I opened the door and saw her standing there, suitcase in hand, I barely recognized her. Catherine, I said. She looked tired. Not in the I haven't slept way, but in the I've been living in my own consequences way. She wore a soft beige coat and no makeup, hair pulled back into a loose braid, the version of her I used to wake up next to on Saturdays, back when mornings were safe. Can I come in? She asked. I hesitated. Why? I need to tell you something, she said. Face to face. Just once. I stepped aside. She entered slowly, like she expected to be stopped. I didn't offer her tea. I didn't ask if she'd eaten. I just sat across from her in the living room while she set her suitcase next to the couch and folded her hands like she was on trial. I've been thinking about that night, she began. The banquet, the envelope, the look on your face. I didn't speak. I kept waiting for you to scream at me, she continued, to lose it, to throw things or cry or beg. But you didn't. You just let the truth burn everything down and walked away. I stayed silent. And the worst part? She said, voice cracking. You were right to. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. She opened it and slid her wedding ring onto the coffee table. I should have given this back sooner. I looked at the ring, the same one I'd slid onto her finger 7 years ago under an oak tree, both of us laughing after she messed up the vows. It looked smaller now, or maybe I'd just grown. There's no coming back, she said, confirming what I already knew. I ruined that. Then came the part one wasn't ready for. I told Richard the first loved him once, she said. I didn't mean it. I just wanted to see how it felt. I met her eyes. And when I said it to you last time, she continued, I realized I did mean it, but it didn't matter anymore. You weren't listening, because you shouldn't have to. I leaned back, letting the words settle. You're right, I said finally. I wasn't. She nodded. I guess I came here hoping it would feel different, that I'd say it out loud and something would shift. But it didn't. She stood. I thought she was going to grab the suitcase, but she didn't. Instead, she said, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for anything. Good, I said quietly. She smiled, just barely. I thought so. And then she left. I didn't watch her go. I didn't stand in the doorway. I just sat there, staring at the little velvet pouch on the table. It stayed there for 3 days before I finally tossed it into a drawer. That night, I took a walk around the block. Cool air, crickets, porch lights glowing like quiet neighbors. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel haunted. Not by the memory of her. Not by what I'd lost. Not by what could have been. There was no dramatic final text. No last voicemail. No unexpected twist. Just peace. Sometimes closure doesn't come in the form of a speech or an apology or some poetic moment of redemption. Sometimes it comes when you stop needing any of that. Sometimes the ending isn't a door slamming shut. Sometimes it's just you, standing alone in the quiet, realizing you don't miss the sound of her keys in the lock. And that's when I knew. She was gone. And I was free. Months passed. The house no longer echoed her absence. It breathed with new life. I donated her forgotten things, painted the walls, and let the silence become music. People asked if I'd moved on. I'd moved through. I wasn't looking for anyone. I was just looking for me. And for the first time in years, I found him. One evening, at a bookstore I used to avoid because she loved it, I met someone. Her name was Claire. She smiled like she meant it and listened like silence mattered. We talked about everything except the past. I didn't need to explain my scars. She saw them and didn't flinch. Maybe this wasn't a new chapter. Maybe it was a whole new book. And this time I was the one holding the pen.